The first recording begins without warning. No dramatic music, no narration, just the dull scrape of boots against concrete and the shallow sound of a man breathing through his nose. A police body camera is already running when the officer steps onto the porch of a small, weathered house on Carolina Street in Gary, Indiana. The date stamp reads January 19, 2014. The time is just after noon. Nothing about the exterior suggests what is about to unfold inside. No lights flicker. No symbols are drawn on the door. It is a normal house in a struggling neighborhood, the kind of place officers respond to every day for noise complaints, domestic disputes, welfare checks. The call came in as a routine request. A woman asking for help with her children. No mention of demons. No mention of possession. Just a family in distress. According to police records, officers had already been to this address more than once in the previous weeks. Each time, the reports were strange but manageable. Children acting out. A mother claiming something was wrong in the home. A grandmother visibly shaken. Nothing that could not be explained away as stress, poverty, or mental health issues. At least, that is what it looked like on paper. The officer knocks. The door opens slowly. A woman stands in the doorway. Her name is Latoya Ammons. She is thin, exhausted, and appears older than her age. Her eyes are sunken, dark circles heavy beneath them. She does not look surprised to see the police. She looks relieved. The camera captures the interior as the officer steps inside. The house is dim, the curtains drawn despite the daylight outside. The air feels heavy even through the recording, as if the walls themselves are holding their breath. There is a faint smell of something stale, not quite rot, not quite mildew. The officer greets her calmly. His tone is professional, neutral. He asks how he can help. Latoya begins to speak. Her voice is low and steady, not hysterical. That alone stands out. She explains that her children are not acting like themselves, that they say things they should not know, that they see things, that something is happening in the house. She does not raise her voice. She does not cry. She speaks as if she has already accepted that whatever this is, it is beyond her control. According to later statements, the disturbances began several months earlier, shortly after the family moved into the home. At first, it was subtle. Doors opening on their own. Footsteps at night. The sound of something moving in the basement when no one was there. Latoya assumed it was the house settling, or perhaps animals. Gary is full of old buildings with bad foundations and worse plumbing. She ignored it. Then the children started complaining. Her youngest, a boy just 8 years old, told her he saw shadows in his room at night. Not shapes, not figures, but shadows that moved against the walls even when the lights were on. Her 12-year-old daughter said she heard whispers calling her name from the basement. Her eldest son, 9 at the time, began waking up screaming, saying something was standing at the foot of his bed. Latoya tried to reassure them. She told them it was nightmares, that they were just adjusting to a new place. But the behavior changed. Witnesses later reported that the children began speaking in voices that were not their own. Deeper voices, flat voices, voices without emotion. They used words they had never used before. Obscenities, threats. They laughed at things that were not funny. They stared at walls for long periods of time, unblinking. Teachers at their school noticed the change. The children became withdrawn, aggressive. Their grades dropped. They stopped interacting with other students. Latoya sought medical help. Doctors examined the children and found nothing physically wrong. Psychologists suggested trauma, stress, possible shared delusions. Medication was prescribed. Counseling sessions were scheduled. None of it worked. At home, the activity escalated. According to Latoya's sworn statement, black shapes began appearing more frequently. Not just at night, but during the day. She described them as tall, human-sized forms that moved quickly from room to room, disappearing when she tried to focus on them. She said the basement door would slam shut on its own, that the sound of something crawling could be heard in the walls, that the children would sometimes refuse to enter certain rooms, screaming and shaking as if in pain. Her mother, Rosa Campbell, moved in to help. Rosa was a woman known in her community as practical and deeply religious, but not prone to fantasy. She did not believe in ghosts or demons. She believed in hard work and prayer. When she first arrived, she dismissed Latoya's fears as exhaustion. That changed within days. Rosa later told investigators that one night, while praying in the living room, she felt a sudden pressure on her chest, as if something heavy was sitting on her. She could not move. She could not speak. She said she saw a dark figure standing in the corner of the room, watching her. When the pressure lifted, the figure was gone. She did not sleep the rest of the night. The family contacted their church. According to church records, a local priest visited the home to bless it. He walked through each room, reciting prayers, sprinkling holy water. He advised the family to pray together and remain calm. During the blessing, nothing unusual occurred. The priest left, believing he had done what was needed. That night, the children's behavior became violent. Latoya reported that her sons began growling, barking like dogs, their faces contorted in expressions she had never seen before. One of them stood at the top of the stairs and spoke in a low, unfamiliar voice, telling her that he was not her son, that he would kill her. She tried to restrain him. He was stronger than he should have been. Neighbors heard screaming and called the police. The responding officers documented the scene as chaotic, but explainable. Children acting out. A mother overwhelmed. A grandmother praying loudly. No visible signs of assault. No weapons. The officers left after advising Latoya to seek further medical help. Over the next few days, the family's fear turned into desperation. Latoya stopped sending the children to school. She slept in the living room to watch them at night. She claimed that when she closed her eyes, she felt hands pulling at her hair, that something whispered in her ear, telling her to give up, telling her the house belonged to it now. On January 19th, she called the police again. This time, the situation was different. The body cam footage shows the officer listening as Latoya explains that her children are being possessed. She uses the word carefully, as if she knows how it sounds. The officer nods, not agreeing, not dismissing. He asks to see the children. They are in the living room. 2 boys and a girl sit on the couch. They are unusually still. Their eyes follow the officer as he enters. There is no fear in their expressions. No curiosity. Just a blank awareness. The officer greets them. None of them respond. According to the officer's later report, the atmosphere in the room felt wrong. Too quiet. He noted that the temperature seemed colder than the rest of the house. He could not explain why he noticed it, only that he did. Latoya's youngest son suddenly begins to smile. The smile is slow and deliberate. It does not reach his eyes. He slides off the couch and stands in front of the officer. He looks up at him and speaks. His voice is calm, clear, and far older than an 8-year-old should be. He says something obscene, something sexual. The officer stiffens but remains composed. He tells the boy to watch his language. The boy laughs. According to the footage, the laugh is not high-pitched or playful. It is low and hollow. The officer glances back at Latoya. Her face has gone pale. She whispers that this is what she has been trying to tell them. What happens next is the moment that would later circulate online in fragments, stripped of context and debated endlessly. The boy turns away from the officer and walks backward toward the wall. His eyes never leave the officer's face. When his back touches the wall, he does not stop. He continues moving, his heels lifting off the floor, his body rising slowly, as if pulled upward by an unseen force. His feet leave the ground. His body tilts at an unnatural angle. He moves backward along the wall, suspended in the air. The officer steps back instinctively. The camera shakes. A sharp intake of breath is audible. Witnesses later reported that the boy reached the ceiling, flipped over, and landed on his feet without injury. The body cam footage cuts away before the full movement is clearly visible, but the officer's reaction is unmistakable. He swears under his breath. He backs away further, creating distance between himself and the child. The room erupts into noise. Latoya begins praying loudly. Rosa shouts the name of Jesus over and over. The other children start screaming. The officer calls for backup. According to police logs, multiple officers responded to the scene. Paramedics were requested. Child Protective Services was notified. The children were removed from the home for evaluation. What makes this case different from countless others is what happened next. At the hospital, doctors examined the children. Nurses observed them closely. Social workers interviewed them separately. All 3 children displayed sudden, extreme behavioral changes in the presence of religious stimuli. They reacted violently to prayer. They cursed at staff members. They spoke in voices that did not match their age or speech patterns. One nurse later testified that she saw one of the boys walk backward up a wall in the examination room, his hands and feet flat against the surface, his eyes rolled back in his head. The nurse refused to return to the room. A physician documented that the boy appeared to be in a trance-like state, unresponsive to verbal commands. He noted that the child's strength was far beyond normal limits when staff attempted to restrain him. Sedatives had little effect. According to official reports, a chaplain was called to the hospital. When he entered the room, the children began screaming simultaneously. One of them shouted that he did not belong there, that he was not welcome, that they would not leave. Child Protective Services determined that the home environment was unsafe. The children were placed in foster care. Latoya was devastated, but believed it was necessary. She told investigators that whatever was in the house would follow them if they stayed. The house on Carolina Street was boarded up. But the case did not end there. The diocese was contacted. According to church records, a formal investigation was opened to determine whether the Ammons case met the criteria for demonic possession under Catholic doctrine. This process is slow and cautious. The church requires exhaustive medical and psychological evaluations before considering an exorcism. In this case, those evaluations had already begun. A priest with experience in deliverance ministry was assigned to review the evidence. He interviewed Latoya, Rosa, the children's doctors, nurses, and social workers. He reviewed the police reports and the body cam footage. He visited the house. In his private notes, later obtained by investigators, the priest wrote that the atmosphere inside the home was oppressive, that he felt a sense of dread almost immediately, that his prayers felt heavy in his mouth, as if the words did not want to be spoken. He noted scratches on the walls of the basement, deep, uneven marks that did not resemble damage from tools or animals. He noted that the basement temperature was significantly lower than the rest of the house, despite no functioning air conditioning. He requested permission to perform a minor exorcism. This is not the dramatic ritual depicted in films. It is a series of prayers intended to bless a place and command any malevolent presence to leave. The priest performed the rite in the basement first. According to his statement, as he began the prayers, he heard what sounded like footsteps running above him. Heavy footsteps. When he finished and went upstairs, the house was empty. No one had entered. No one had left. He returned to the church shaken. The church escalated the case. A more experienced priest was assigned, one trained specifically in exorcism. His name was withheld from public records. He agreed to meet with Latoya. Their first meeting took place in a church office. Latoya brought a folder of documents, medical reports, police reports, statements from witnesses. She spoke calmly, methodically. She did not appear delusional. She did not exaggerate. She described events as if reciting facts. The priest asked her to pray with him. According to his account, Latoya began to shake as soon as the prayer started. Her voice faltered. She clenched her hands tightly in her lap. Tears streamed down her face, but she did not sob. She endured. When the prayer ended, she said she felt lighter. For the first time in months, she felt calm. The priest agreed to visit the house again, despite it being boarded up. This time, he did not go alone. 2 other clergy members accompanied him, along with a church-appointed observer. The doors were unlocked. The house was silent. Dust covered the floors. Furniture remained as it had been left. They began in the living room. According to the observer's notes, the prayers progressed normally until they reached the staircase leading to the basement. At that point, a loud bang echoed from below. The sound was metallic, like something heavy striking pipes. The priests paused. The sound stopped. They continued. As they descended the stairs, the air grew colder. Their breath became visible. The observer noted a strong smell of sulfur, though no source could be identified. When the lead priest began the prayer of command, his voice echoed unnaturally, as if the basement were larger than it appeared. A voice answered him. It did not come from any of the priests. It came from the darkness at the far end of the basement. The observer wrote that the voice was low, distorted, and filled with hatred. It mocked the prayers. It repeated the priest's words back to him in a twisted imitation. The priests continued, raising their voices. The lights flickered. According to the account, something moved in the darkness. Not a shape, but a shift, as if the shadows themselves were rearranging. The observer felt an overwhelming urge to flee. He resisted. The prayer ended abruptly when one of the priests collapsed. He was conscious, but unable to move. His eyes were wide with terror. He claimed he saw something standing behind the lead priest, something tall and black, with no face. The team left immediately. The church made a decision. They would attempt an exorcism, not of a person, but of the house itself. Permission was granted. The date was set, and the police were notified, not to intervene, but to observe. A body camera was assigned. The same model used during the initial response. The same unblinking lens. The camera would record everything. The night before the ritual, Latoya returned to the house alone. She said she felt compelled to be there, drawn back by something she could not explain. She stood in the living room, surrounded by silence. She began to pray. According to her later statement, she heard footsteps on the stairs. Slow, deliberate, coming down from the second floor. She did not look. She kept praying. The footsteps stopped behind her. A voice whispered her name. She ran. The next morning, the exorcism began. The body cam footage starts as the officers arrive. The house looms behind them, dark against the gray sky. The officers exchange uneasy glances. One of them adjusts the camera on his chest. Inside, the priests prepare. Holy water is poured into small bowls. Candles are lit. The air is thick with incense. The prayers begin quietly, almost gently. The camera records it all. As the lead priest raises his voice, commanding whatever is present to leave, the temperature drops sharply. The officer's breath fogs the air. The candles flicker violently. From somewhere deep within the house, a sound echoes. A sound like laughter. Low, slow, and getting closer. The laughter does not echo the way a human voice should. It seems to come from several places at once, slipping through the walls, crawling along the ceiling, vibrating through the floorboards. The officers tense. One of them shifts his weight, his hand hovering near his belt, instinctively searching for something that cannot help him hear. The camera captures the priest's face as he pauses, just briefly. His expression does not change, but his eyes harden. He continues the prayer. According to the official church report, the exorcism followed the approved rite for the cleansing of a place. No names were invoked. No dramatics were allowed. The language was formal, ancient, precise. Each word chosen carefully, spoken with authority rather than force. The laughter stops. For several seconds, there is only the sound of the priest's voice and the faint crackle of the candles. The house seems to settle, as if listening. One of the officers later said this silence was worse than the noise. It felt expectant, waiting. Then the basement door slams shut. The impact is so sudden that the camera jolts as the officer, wearing it, flinches. Dust shakes loose from the ceiling. The sound reverberates through the house like a gunshot. The officer curses quietly. Another officer moves toward the door, but the priest raises a hand, signaling him to stay back. According to the body cam timestamp, the door had been open moments before. The lead priest continues, his voice now louder, more commanding. He steps toward the basement door. The observer stands behind him, clutching a notebook with white knuckles. The second priest begins a supporting prayer, his voice trembling despite his effort to remain composed. The door begins to rattle. At first, it is subtle, a faint vibration, like someone gently testing the handle. Then it grows stronger. The knob twists back and forth violently. The wood groans under the strain, as if something on the other side is pushing against it with tremendous force. The officers exchange glances. One of them whispers that there is no one else in the house. This has already been confirmed. The camera captures the fear in his eyes. The priest places his hand on the door. The rattling stops instantly. The sudden stillness is unnerving. The priest speaks a command in Latin. His voice is steady, controlled. He tells whatever is present that it has no authority here, that it must leave. A response comes immediately. A voice erupts from behind the door, loud and furious. It is not a scream. It is not a shout. It is a roar layered with something else. Something almost human but twisted beyond recognition. The words are indistinct on the recording, distorted by the camera's microphone, but the tone is unmistakable. It is rage. The door bulges outward. According to the officer's later statements, the door appeared to bow under pressure, as if something massive were pressing against it from below. The hinges creak. The frame splinters slightly near the top. One of the candles goes out. The room grows darker. The priest does not step back. He raises the crucifix he is holding and presses it against the door. He continues the prayer, now shouting over the noise. The second priest joins him, their voices overlapping, filling the space with sound. The observer later wrote that he felt an overwhelming sense of hatred emanating from the basement, not directed at any one person, but at everything, as if the house itself resented their presence. The temperature drops further. One of the officers later testified that he could no longer feel his fingers. The camera captures his breath coming faster now, shallow and uneven. The door suddenly swings open. Not slowly, not gradually. IT flies open with such force that it slams into the wall, leaving a deep dent in the plaster. The officers jump back. The camera shakes violently. The basement is completely dark. The candles flicker weakly, casting long, distorted shadows down the stairwell. The smell hits them all at once. Not sulfur exactly, but something acrid and old, like damp earth mixed with rot. The priest steps forward. According to the church report, this was the moment he later described as the most terrifying of his life. From the darkness at the bottom of the stairs, something moves, AT first. It appears to be a shadow shifting against the far wall. But the movement is wrong. It does not correspond to the candlelight. It stretches upward, elongating unnaturally, as if rising to its full height. A voice speaks again. This time, it is clear. It calls the priest by name. The Bodycam audio picks it up faintly, enough to be recognized later by those who knew him. The priest freezes for a fraction of a second. He had not given his name aloud. The voice laughs softly. The priest recovers and continues the rite, his voice shaking now despite his effort. He commands the presence to identify itself or leave. The response is immediate. A sound like snarling echoes up the stairs. The shadow surges forward. The officers react instinctively. One of them draws his weapon, though he does not aim it. His hand trembles. The other officer shouts for him to put it down. There is nothing to shoot. The shadow reaches the base of the stairs. The observer later wrote that at this point, he felt certain he was going to die. Not because he believed the presence would attack them physically, but because the fear itself was overwhelming, crushing, absolute. The priest raises the crucifix higher. He shouts a final command. The candles all go out at once. The house is plunged into darkness. For several seconds, the body cam records nothing but blackness and sound. Heavy breathing, a muffled prayer, the sound of something moving rapidly up the stairs, followed by a violent crash from somewhere on the second floor. The officers shout. One of them activates his flashlight. The beam cuts through the darkness, sweeping wildly. The stairs are empty. The basement is empty. The shadow is gone. The flashlight beam moves to the ceiling, the walls, the corners of the room. Nothing. Then a sound comes from above. Footsteps. Heavy. Running. The officers move toward the stairs, their training taking over despite the terror. The priest follows, still praying. The observer hesitates, then forces himself to go as well. The second-floor hallway is narrow and dark. Doors line the walls, leading to the children's bedrooms. At the far end, the door to the largest room is open. The footsteps stop there. The officers approach slowly. The camera captures the hallway stretching ahead, the shadows deep and oppressive. The smell is stronger now. As they reach the doorway, the temperature shifts abruptly. The air is warmer inside the room, thick and stagnant. The flashlight beam illuminates the interior. The room is empty. The mattress on the floor is overturned. Scratches mar the walls, deep and fresh, as if something had raked its claws across the plaster. The ceiling fan spins slowly, though no one touched it. Then the laughter returns. This time, it comes from everywhere. The priest steps into the room. He raises his voice again, louder than before. He begins the final prayers of command, his words echoing off the walls. The observer later testified that as the prayers intensified, the room began to feel smaller. Not physically, but perceptually, as if the walls were closing in. He felt dizzy, nauseated. One of the officers vomits into the corner. The laughter grows louder. Then it cuts off abruptly. A pressure fills the room. The Bodycam audio distorts for several seconds, a high-pitched whine overwhelming the recording. The camera shakes violently, as if the officer wearing it has been shoved. According to his statement, he felt a powerful force strike his chest, knocking him backward into the hallway. He hit the wall hard. The wind knocked out of him. There was no visible source of the impact. The priest cries out. The camera catches a glimpse of him staggering, his face contorted in pain. He clutches his side and drops to one knee. The second priest rushes to support him. The observer stands frozen in the doorway, unable to move. The pressure suddenly vanishes. The room goes silent. The flashlight beam steadies. Nothing moves. The priest regains his footing slowly. He is pale, sweating heavily. He insists on finishing the rite. He speaks the final words with deliberate care, his voice hoarse but resolute. When the last prayer is spoken, the air seems to release. The oppressive feeling lifts. The temperature normalizes. The smell fades. According to the church report, this was the moment they believed the exorcism had succeeded. The officers escort the priests out of the house. None of them speak. The body cam records the sound of their boots on the porch, the night air cold and sharp compared to the suffocating atmosphere inside. As they step off the porch, one of the officers glances back at the house. In an upstairs window, something moves. The footage is grainy. The shape is indistinct, but it appears tall. Too tall to be a person standing normally. It stands there for a moment, motionless. Then it retreats into the darkness. The officer swears quietly. According to police protocol, the footage was reviewed later by superiors. Some of it was classified. Some of it was deemed inconclusive due to poor audio and video quality. Portions of the recording were leaked online, sparking widespread debate. Skeptics claimed mass hysteria, poor lighting, stress-induced hallucinations, equipment malfunction. Those who were there did not agree. In the days following the exorcism, Latoya reported that the oppressive feeling she had lived with for months was gone. She slept through the night for the first time since moving into the house. She no longer heard whispers. She no longer felt watched. The children, still in foster care, began to improve. According to social worker reports, their behavior normalized gradually. The violent outbursts stopped. The inappropriate language ceased. They responded positively to counseling. Medical staff noted no further unexplained incidents. After several weeks, the church determined that the case had been resolved. The house on Carolina Street remained vacant. Neighbors reported that animals refused to go near it. Dogs would bark and pull away from the sidewalk. Birds avoided the roof. Some claimed to see lights flickering inside at night, despite the power being disconnected. Eventually, the house was demolished. According to city records, the decision was made due to structural issues and code violations. The demolition crew arrived early one morning. They worked quickly, eager to finish. One worker later claimed that when the first wall came down, a foul odor poured out of the debris, so strong it made several men gag. He claimed he heard what sounded like a scream as the structure collapsed. There is no official record of that. Latoya and her children moved to a different city. She refused to speak publicly about the case beyond what was required by investigators. In a brief statement years later, she said only that she believed something evil had been attached to the house, not to her family. The priests involved were reassigned. One of the officers who responded that day requested a transfer shortly afterward. In his request, he cited stress and difficulty sleeping. He reported recurring nightmares about the house, about a shadow standing at the top of the stairs, watching him. The body cam footage remains locked in evidence. What exists online is incomplete. Fragments. Enough to raise questions. Enough to unsettle. According to church doctrine, true demonic possession is exceedingly rare. Fewer still are ever officially documented. Fewer again are witnessed by law enforcement. And almost none are recorded on video. This case stands alone, not because it proves anything conclusively, but because every person involved, from skeptical police officers to medical professionals to seasoned clergy, documented experiences they could not explain. They did not agree on what they saw. They did agree on one thing: whatever was in that house was not just in their minds, and it did not want to leave.